Hey there, if you're enjoying this podcast, please take a moment to leave a review and to follow or subscribe. Don't forget to share with anybody that you think might be interested. Your support is greatly appreciated. Word of mouth is incredibly powerful, and it's the best way for us to reach more people and grow this wonderful community. Thanks again for listening. This is the Stop Time Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hopkins, and I'm here to engage you in thought-provoking, motivational conversations around practicing the art of living in the moment. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm excited to dig deep and offer insights into embracing who we are and where we are at. So my next guest is a creative force whose songs have become the soundtrack of a generation. She's an Oscar, Grammy, and Emmy Award-winning songwriter whose work spans Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Broadway, and beyond. In collaboration with her husband and creative partner, Robert Lopez, she co-wrote Frozen and Frozen 2, including the iconic and unforgettable Let It Go, as well as Coco's Remember Me. Her credits include WandaVision's Agatha All Along and the Hulu musical series Up Here. On stage, she co-wrote In Transit, the first ever all a cappella musical on Broadway, and adapted Frozen for the Broadway stage. Her work has earned Drama Desk, Outer Critics Circle, and Lucille Lortel nominations. She's a champion of new voices and a true creative visionary, and my new friend already. I'm honored to introduce Kristen Anderson-Lopez. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's funny. On the elevator, I went out and walked before our Zoom today, and on the elevator, I stepped in, and there was a landscaper going up to an apartment, and he had a T-shirt that said, "Let It Grow, Inc." And it seemed to be referencing my song. There was just enough that was like snowy about it that I was like, did they name their company as a pun on our lyric?
That's funny. Curious. I always like to know, like, what's the rhythm of your day? It seems ordinary to you, but I find context so interesting because if your context is only, this is what she's done.
Oh, totally.
Who cares? I mean, no offense.
Yeah, no.
But do you know what I mean? Like, who are you now? What's your day like? And what's the rhythm of your life right now?
The rhythm of my life right now is I'm still a mom with kids at home. I still have a teenager with a couple of years left to go. And so her rhythm really dictates my rhythm, our rhythm, in that our schedule revolves around her school schedule. Her, like, when I go to bed is about, like, when are we going to get up? What time does Annie have to be at school? And it's interesting because I do think that having children gave us both as artists a lot of structure. It just forced us to be like, okay, time means something. You can't procrastinate all day and then say, like, well, right after Seinfeld. Like, time is really important and it's finite. So our day starts often with waking up to one of us will cook breakfast and sort of be there to be a presence for her, so she's not starting the day by herself. Then we tend to build in a workout, like either I do strength training and I try to walk with a friend or not a friend. Bobby does tennis. So exercise is in the morning, and then we'll often dive in, and either when we're working on a Disney project or an animated project, often by noon, we have a call either 3 times a week or sometimes every day, our team in the studio, and we'll talk about, like, what are we tackling today? Right now I'm in a tiny pause. So we are our own team and we kind of have to say, well, what are we tackling today? Because we're working on something for the stage that I don't think I'm allowed to fully announce. So today we're finishing up a song that we will send to our collaborators probably this afternoon. And then either it's like we hit 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it's time to start cooking dinner, and our child comes home, who's still home. We also have a college age kid. who is a glorious source of chaos. You never know when she's going to call or what. So, but right now she's off at Brown, so she weighs in when she weighs in. But either we'll cook dinner and then usually go like, what are we gonna watch? Or we go to the theater to like 1 to 2 times a week
Hmm.
because we're Tony voters. We're
Okay.
Tony voters and we're Oscar voters, so we have a lot of content to digest and
Yeah.
a lot of assignments to hit
Yeah.
per.
That's a big responsibility. It's interesting as a creative, some people don't like to, I've worked with writers, right, who don't want to see anything else. They're afraid of being influenced or overwhelmed. Or how do you guys feel about that? Like when you're in this heavy season, right, where you're sort of, I mean, it's an obligation, but it's also a great service, right, to be a voter in these areas. Do you ever does it overwhelm you for like, how do you stay clear for your own work?
Oh, I think that seeing art is how you're in the conversation.
Mm,
Showing up to see like, oh, so that's how they, turned all of those songs into Anne Juliet, or
love it.
oh, look at like tonight we're gonna see John Proctor as the villain. So it's also spending time with different artists, different voices, getting that like beautiful restlessness when you see something great and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to do that. Like,
Yes.
how did they do that? And what layers in myself would I need to tap into to create something of that tone or that with that message or
Mm,
um so yeah, I mean, and I think that even something that didn't quite get there or doesn't quite work or has structural problems is a really great way to remind yourself of like, oh, okay, sometimes your protagonist like loses their agency and you kind of luff a show will luff in the wind when things are just happening to them instead of the protagonist driving and like you're reminding yourself, oh yeah, in that act 2 song, is my protagonist like what's my protagonist going for in that act 2 song? It's a great way to
totally.
be in dialogue with your own work.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so you used the word luff just now,
Yes. Oh, luff in the wind. Yes.
which is a great word, but
Yes.
no one ever uses it. I love words. What is I mean, you're a lyricist, right? You're a writer. So how do you play with words? Do they delight you? Do you find a new one every?
You know what? I think like I don't know where the word luff came from. It came from the fact that I actually think the word recall is a bit of a problem. Like I think that I have a lot of my file cabinets are further away
Mm,
sometimes than other
mm,
people's. And so I have to look for it through visual. Like I'm often visual or an intuitive. Like I feel like
yep.
my relationship to language goes through like one of those family circus cartoons to find what I'm trying to say. And so I am a little nonlinear and creative with language
Mm,
often because I know these words, and I can even like feel them and taste them and I can't find it. Um,
mm,
I think it's just a different way of thinking. And also I hear the rhythm of language a lot. Like
yes.
I unconsciously rhyme. I'll do it quite a bit in our conversation.
That's awesome. I love that. I love words and I love when I hear new words. I get excited by it. And if I'm hearing you correctly, I think that you're saying it's funny because everybody's perception is different. So when you're telling me about yourself and your words and you've kind of analyzed it already and figured it out, and even in your brain starting to go, maybe something's wrong with that. It's funny because from where I'm sitting, I'm like, no, actually, I was commenting on it because you had beautiful access to a word that beautifully described something that I never hear anyone use. And then you went on to talk about, how you get it and stuff. And the word that just kept coming into my head was visceral. It's visceral. And you said rhythm then, right? Like you feel it, right? It's got to connect. That makes sense to me That's the intuition piece. That's the piece where and it makes sense. It's so cool. I mean, it's like as a choreographer, I could do all sorts of movements, but somehow and they're all nice or whatever, and they all might tell the story, but you can tell when it's the right one because it feels right.
Yes. And there are those times that, and usually if it's when I'm talking to somebody who I'm like intimidated by um or trying to impress, like when I'm not aligned with my
Yes.
um that I'll miss the mark and say like horribly embarrassing things sometimes. And my husband does like to call me Miss Malaprop because I do get a little creative with the language sometimes.
That's so funny. But the distinction there sounds like it's because that usually happens when you're feeling intimidated or not ready or whatever. And then you just kind of go on. Yeah, I mean, you operate at a pretty high energetic level. I can feel it.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that you fire quickly. And you probably fire quickly even when you're feeling off.
Yes. Like,
Totally.
yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's like the person is rushing around the file cabinet and just grabbing and hairpins are flying everywhere.
Oh my God, that is awesome. Wait, that brings me to remember, I had a question I wanted to ask you about. You talked about, I asked you, what do people most often get wrong about you? You said they think I'm stronger and more confident than I am. That's a layer for sure. But I have other layers I'm trying to bring into the room with me as well. That's interesting. Talk to me about those layers and what layers you'd like to bring more into the room.
I'm an older child. I mean, it's hard to talk about this without like bringing up my family of origin a little bit, but I'm
Sure.
the oldest of four, and my brother, who's 2 years younger than me, is special needs. He's on the spectrum, but it's hard to get a 51-year-old man diagnosed at this age. He's a wonderful, also wonderful creative force of chaos in our lives. But I really grew up with strong mandates of like, take care of your brother. The other day, I was talking with a friend, and I don't know how this came up, but I was like, oh, I don't want them to think I'm not trying. And my friend was like, nobody will ever accuse you of not trying hard. Um, but I definitely have that, like, I'm showing up, I'm engaging. If you call on me or you ask a question, I'll raise my hand.
Yeah.
I'm first in the alphabet with Anderson. So I was used to always having to go first for things and act as if and just be like, whenever I feel afraid, I hold my head erect and whistle a happy tune. I really took Oscar Hammerstein's words to heart there.
Mm.
And so I lead with like, I'll lead the team down the field. And I think what I'm starting to learn to do is also go, there's a part of me that would love to see 5 other people do the thing before I go, like, that I don't have to
Mm.
be so fearlessly brave and bold. That I am able to act like a third child instead of the first child, and
Mm.
let somebody else go first, or like I'm trying to exercise less of the I'm responsible muscle and more of like the what would happen if I am quiet for a second and
Mm.
let somebody else take the lead and then react. It's not always easy. I'm very programmed to
Yeah.
uh, first child all over the place
Yeah. Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
verb.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I work a lot with my clients on recognizing that their strengths, and that's a strength. I mean, I think you could acknowledge that that's a real strength.
Mhm.
So you've become known for it, both from self and from others. Ergo, you show up that way.
Mhm.
And you could do it in your sleep. And what's happened is, your strength has become a default.
Right.
And what we work on is taking our strengths and putting them in our toolbox
Right.
so that they don't overshadow and become our weakness, right? Because there's so many other aspects of you and shades of you. to explore that could be fun and scary and edgy for you, but also really wonderful and for others as well.
Yeah. I used to be like, where's the party? Where, like, put me around people all the time.
Mm.
Um, and I am an extrovert. I do get energy from being around people. Um, but I'm also I get a different kind of energy from being out in the woods. I really love the woods. I get a
Hmm.
different energy from sunsets. I don't know if it's like a chakra thing, but there are certainly lots of like more, let's call it the wise goddess there. Like the wise goddess is better off in the woods
Mm.
than at a another opening party. Um like I'm better off like communing with the trees and leaping over streams to cultivate the deeper layers.
Mm.
And I'm excited about that. And I actually these days I find that more fulfilling
Hmm.
than I love an opening party. I don't love wearing Spanx. Um so
I love that you have this emergence of, I call it access. I believe it's already there. I think you would probably agree that it's already there, but it's been again overshadowed by, that the A type, whatever label you want, how you've been showing up. And then as I said, especially if you're successful at showing up that way, and that's the orbit that you live in, that is how people expect you to be. And it's easy to do because you've always done it. And, to be able to wholeheartedly still go to the opening, but go with the goddess state of mind, as opposed to saying, I'm not going to the opening, I'm going to go to the woods, which is very binary, right?
right.
You can
Right.
you can go to the woods at the gala.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's right.
Absolutely. And that's like the work that I'm doing every day these days with
Yeah, that's cool.
this new transition into whatever the empty nester me is going to look like. And my husband and I are both like having a really good time. I think the pandemic brought a lot of hard things, but it also brought us to the woods, honestly.
Yes.
It slowed us
Same.
down and it got us off a train that was running that we were like gotta stay on the train.
Yep.
Um, and I think that we both were given this gift of time in the woods with our family,
Mm.
and that opened up areas that we were like, ooh, I'd like to cultivate this more.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no, for sure.
I'm gonna try not to talk in the us. That's another like so much of my life is connected with Bobby's and it's very easy for me to find myself in us land because there is a lot of what we do is connected.
Were you happy that I invited you and not both of you?
I was interested. I actually I made him listen to the podcast on our way up to the woods this weekend,
Mm.
and I think he would love doing this as well. And I think you'd see very different and complementary energies.
Totally. It was really my instinct not to have you both together. I would love to speak with him separately. You said you feel most alive when you're doing anything that feels like playing. So, what does play mean to you? What are the shades of play, since we're talking about shades these days?
Okay. Uh, there's an aspect of unbridled joy. There's an aspect of creativity. There's an aspect of non-results, results aren't important. It's process oriented.
Mm.
Um, and that's not true. Let's walk that back. I
Mm.
want to pressure test that because I actually think there's a lot of play. Like as a kid, I like literally created plays in my backyard. And there was we were playing, but we were going towards a result, like forcing all of the neighborhood parents to watch our insane version of Cinderella or something. Um, uh, so I actually think play can be results oriented if the result is something you're really looking forward to,
Hmm.
and is aspirational. Um, I I think play can happen alone or together. Um, that sounds dirtier than it should, but um,
Only if you're thinking that way, Kristen.
there's something about it.
You're
Uh,
so cute.
um, yeah, I think maybe the biggest thing is with play, the self-consciousness
Mm,
is out of the room. Like the self-consciousness is taking a smoke break. And you are, you're left just with all the other parts of you and not censoring yourself.
yeah, I love that. Are we playing right now?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think long podcast interviews are a form of improv. Like
Oh, yeah.
I think of it, it excites the improv piece of me. Because you're lobbing questions. I'm trying to hit it back. I'm saying
Totally.
things like my self-consciousness is taking a smoke break. I'm not a smoker. Like,
So you're
where'd that come
creating.
from?
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I love that. Yeah, that's super cool. And you've been talking a lot about transition. Well, what's the transition to? What's the story you're telling yourself in your head about what transition means? What does that evoke for you?
Um, well, so many of my friends I mean, are the sandwich years. Like
Mm,
my parents are here. I just moved them up to a senior assisted living facility, but I worry about them and
yes.
I worry about my kids, like you said, the can't go to sleep until they come home. And yet there's going to be a moment in 2027 when we drop our second child at whatever school she ends up in, and our schedule will be different, and our ability to do a show in the West End, or our ability to say we're going to go live in LA and work with the animators for 4 weeks,
Yeah.
will be different. So there's all kinds of freedom ahead.
Hmm.
And yet, because I am a person fascinated with psychology and what you do, I'm also having conversations with Bobby right now about, like, let's be intentional about what we want to do with that freedom. Like,
Hmm.
because it is easy, with our lives to take on a lot of projects.
Yeah.
And then, once the trains start going, a metaphor I used earlier, like, you're on that train until it opens.
Hmm.
And you're not necessarily in charge of when you're on that train, like driving the train or chasing the train. But
Jumping onto the train.
jumping on desperately, flailing in the wind with the train. But once it goes, it's going. And so, being intentional about what trains we sign up for, knowing that there aren't infinite trains to go on
Right.
either. And that sometimes these trains take 7 to 13 years to do.
Yeah.
So it's really important to go, all right, what haven't we done already? What are ask ourselves the questions like you ask on this podcast of,
Hmm.
like, what would you do if you could do anything?
Yeah.
Uh,
If you
and
couldn't, yeah, if you couldn't do what you're doing now, actually, that's a great question. What would you do?
uh, there are two answers I use. One would be what you do. I think I'd actually really love couples counseling,
Mm,
um, because I spend so much time in collaboration and thinking about the ways that uh, couples can lift each other up or destroy each other.
yeah.
Um, I also am. I love looking for patterns. So
Mm.
I am an epidemiologist at heart too. Like I am really fascinated with looking at like the origins of diseases and how to
Mm.
cover that. And I think had I gone into the medical industry, I would be an epidemiologist.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Weird hobby.
Not at all. Not at all. It's so funny, it's I feel like we get programmed in the arts in particular. I can only really speak for the arts because that's really my experience as well, but we get programmed to think because we feel it, because it does usually start from a really passionate place, a calling if you want. We get sort of conditioned to well to stay on the train
Mm.
because that's the train that you wanted and it's arrived. You've arrived, you know, and it's like, or there's another one going and you were invited, first class. So we don't ever really think about that because we're so busy. It makes sense. I mean, the external world is telling us, yeah, keep doing it. I can imagine for you that must be a thing, and I'm really interested in that space between like when you first started and where you are now. Now that you have this level of success, do you feel the weight of expectations? Do you feel that people are your yes people and they're not telling you the truth? Do you feel like, talk to me about, the challenges of success?
You know, the the challenges of success, and this is something that my husband wrote Avenue Q and had a big success when he was 24 years old, and we were just dating at the time, and he said once, he was like, success is very stressful.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would love that kind of stress. That would go well for me. Um, and I really couldn't fully understand what he was talking about until it happened to me.
Yeah.
And I think that with success comes often changes in your personal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the success of Frozen and the way that it just kind of took over the world for a little while,
Mm.
our challenge and our promise to each other was like, we are keeping our feet on the ground. We're going to be really careful around what press we read. We're going to be really careful around what our kids are exposed to with this. We're going to try to enjoy the ride, but not get addicted to the ride,
Fair.
because it I think it's Mike White just talked about with the White Lotus. He's like, sometimes you were riding that surfboard like through the tunnel, and the bulk of what we do is out paddling around,
Yeah.
trying to find the right wave, right? And a lot of waiting, and a lot of work out there.
Yeah.
So getting addicted to the ride of the red carpets and the interviews, it's I now think of it as like peeking your head out of the water for a little while, um, and then going back into the water to like do your work
Mm.
of
Yeah. When you talk about caution, the words that we speak into the universe, we're saying to our brain. So when we say go with caution, again, that primitive brain is going to be careful. And when we're operating from being careful, we also limit ourselves, right? So when you say be careful to not get on the ride because it's dangerous, is very different than rephrasing it as, I don't know, well, just simply enjoying the ride for what it is. It's just a ride. The ride ends. It's like, do you know what I mean? And yeah.
yes, maybe intentional about
Hmm.
and there was um while we were intentional, it was also still like completely overwhelming, unpredictable, never imagined kind of season of our lives.
Yeah.
um and really fun and really great, but also we still had to to buy eggs, and we still had to do dishes, and we still had to get our children to preschool and elementary school. And
Yeah.
I mean that in itself is a big gift too, for just
Yep.
keeping things normal. 2 days after the Oscars, I was back in my yoga pants with my hair in a messy bun doing school drop off.
Yeah. In your happy place.
Yes. Um, it's important not to let it define you, because it's an external thing that's happening.
Yep.
And what can be tricky is in your personal relationships, you can fall into a place where people are treating you differently, or
Mm.
they're feeling that you're defined by this outward thing that has happened to you.
Yep.
You're the same person. In fact, in a lot of ways, you're more vulnerable because you're looking to the people around you to say, like, things are regular, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
like we're good, right? Like, you're not going to treat me differently. We're not going to
Yep.
and that can be a strange moment.
Yeah.
In all of this, one of the great blessings in my life is that when we have a moment like Frozen, or we have a moment like our TV show just didn't go that well, like nobody really watched it. It was right when the pandemic was finally sort of ending, and everyone was like, enough.
Going out.
Whether the waves are up or the waves are down, we are together
Yeah.
experiencing it. So it doesn't feel so alone. Even the down parts, the important parts with the down parts are to not spiral too
Yes.
much.
Yes. Yeah.
To not be like, well, we should have done this. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Now I
Yeah.
feel bad about the thing I was thinking about and the thing you're thinking about. So we have to be really careful to not spiral each other in the down or
Yeah.
the anxious moments, but on the up moments, and that vulnerability, like, he was right there. We were holding each other's hands during
Yeah.
that roller coaster.
Yeah.
Our family, our two girls are a big part of our life as well. And like
Yeah.
the four of us are a really grounding unit of play and fun.
I love that. That's beautiful. You mentioned earlier, and I completely understand why, that association, because you're collaborators and have been, and your success has been a lot of it, not all of it by any means, but the well has been together. I'm curious to know for you where you stand in all this, or where you'd like to stand in all this, because I did hear you say, right, that you're interested in not separation is not the right word, but really understanding and being more expansive in who you are as you. I'm curious to know what that looks like for you.
And so am I. Like,
Yeah.
we've been a while since, for very many reasons, we merged careers, and like such amazing gifts came out of that. Like
Yeah.
our ability to stay married, our ability to raise children whose parents had control over their schedule a lot more. Like when we were in two careers, we were looking at a situation where, like, you were never going to have a mom and a dad home on this specific,
Hmm.
doing theater, which is a nighttime sport. Um, uh, so there was a really good reason that we merged. And we want to stay merged in a lot of ways, but having those conversations about, like, are there things, Bobby is exploring. He had this really cool idea for an AI performance art kind of thing. I am I'm thinking about lots of things. I'm thinking about seven different things. I've always wanted to direct. My friends are always talking about how I have to do a one woman show. And like, maybe I start small and like just work on a moth story. And or I've done long talks at Williams College, and they're they're not unlike a one-woman show. Like there,
Mm.
like I could sort of build on that, and work with somebody to define that. Like these are new adventures that I can even begin to think about, because our job as child rearers is moving into adult children consultants.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, totally.
Um, so it's an exciting and scary time to talk about, have those talks, and be really intentional about how we're spending our time and what we want the next 5 years to look like and going forward.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is exciting. It's exciting. I mean, it really is. There's nothing but possibilities, right? And sometimes that can be overwhelming too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very, very overwhelming. And that's the important space, because like, yes, do I want to also like go do the Lord of the Rings tour in New Zealand and like hike the route they took or whatever for the
Mm.
next 3 months? Yes, that's a possibility. I don't know that that's like I should give too much in effort to that, because that's like a bigger, I'm not sure I need to do that in such a pressing way.
Hmm.
That's like a fun fantasy. So like also taking out the fantasy ideas, and really and getting real about like what is aligned. And that's, I did your chakra, your weekly chakra restart the other day, and you talk about the the purpose,
Hmm.
the divine, like, why are you here? um really checking in with every one of these decisions and going like, does it tap into the third eye? Does it, that white light of like, why am I here, or am I just distracting myself? Everything that you do is so rich. Like, yes, we could, and I'm happy to go there with you.
Yeah, let's do it. Let me ask you this. Now we'll do the podcast.
Okay.
See, it's like what I love about you already is that you resonate at a really high frequency, and
Thank
I recognize that because I do too. And what we're most attracted to usually is what we see. We see something in ourselves. So whatever it is about my stuff that you see yourself in, either as a right, and that's a really interesting place to play, by the
Yes.
way, which is really, really interesting. Let me ask you this. Oh, well, I probably should ask you.
Okay.
I'm not going to ask you that. You know
Okay.
what I call should?
No, tell me.
I call I should, I could with shame.
Ah,
So you lose the shame, and then you're standing in could, and you're standing in capability, and then you're back in choice. I
oh,
could do that. Do I want to?
I love that. Now, why is it shame? Because
Think about it. Every time you say I should, there's shame because you're like, I should because I or I should have. I heard you say you and Robert sometimes look back and go, I should have done that.
oh
You
yeah,
could have done that. You chose not to.
right.
What can I learn from that? When we're looking back in should,
Mhm.
it's great to really lose the shame, and then to live in that you know that's something I could have done, but I didn't. And guess what? We always do the very best,
Right.
always, in
Yeah,
every moment.
I
In
love that.
retrospect, it's easy to go, no, that wasn't very good. No, that's bullshit. Nobody plays to lose. Nobody.
Right. Yes.
That's where we get to have empathy for others instead of judging them. Because even though they're not showing up in a way that we think
Hmm.
is very good, they're doing the best they can.
I do love that. Is such a great reset in those moments that you're like, even when you're like, why are you looking at your phone while you're going up the subway stairs? And then you just have to tell yourself, like, I'm sure she's doing her best. Like maybe it's her caregiver, she's getting an emergency text, or maybe she's just
Yeah.
incredibly anxious and she's needing to um, touch in. Like you just have to kind of reframe it and use that storytelling mind in a good way rather than the
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody.
Totally. Yeah. You could have fun with that. You could use fun, which is a value of yours,
Mhm.
so when you start to feel agitated, is to go into that fun creative mode and go, okay, that person's really annoying and is obviously just, going too slow and, making a line in the grocery store and on their phone and not looking up and not caring. Or, what else could be true about this character? Ooh, maybe they're talking too. And then you can just have fun with it and time will pass. And it may
Yes.
be true that they were just doing bullshit on their phone, but you had fun.
They could have been doing the connections.
They could have been, or they could have been doing exactly what you were judging them for doing. But why must you suffer? Because you're judging someone else. We create suffering of our own.
Yep.
So
Preach.
what's the hardest thing that you've ever done?
I think the hardest thing that I've ever done was raise children while having a bi-coastal career. The logistics of that and the discipline that I had to sort of implement and be intentional about, I'm still exhausted from
Yeah.
leaving 3 days of hour by hour micro scheduling. Like, I don't think I could have done it without my two sisters who are 14 years younger than me.
Mm.
They really allowed me to do it, but it was also just huge amounts of gray matter work to
Oh, yeah.
write down what I would have been doing if I were here and not at Disney Animation. That was hard.
That's huge. And I think the inherent associated emotions that go with that, because these are your children, right?
Right.
But also, this is your other child, whatever you're working on.
Right. Yeah. Those few times that I was really pulled to have to decide time with the kids or like get this deadline in because we're going to previews tonight, and if you don't write that scene, it's not getting in. Like, those were the hardest moments.
Yeah.
And those tend to come more from theater than from animation. Theater put me in those hard, like, all the children are fighting and they all need my time right now.
Mm.
Marcia Norman, when I was pregnant, Marcia Norman is a playwright who wrote Night Mother and also a librettist. And when I was pregnant, she was like, here's the piece of advice I'm going to give you. Get your teams in place. Get your supports in place.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need you for every pickup, they remember the vacations and they remember the laughter. So make sure that you don't sacrifice what makes you laugh, and take great vacations.
Well, yeah, and it's also like such important. That's great advice, because it's a limiting belief that more time is better.
Mm,
And
right.
boy, oh boy, have we ever been shamed by that as parents, right?
Oh yeah, especially ladies.
But again, modeling that there's not only one way to do things, I think, is so important. So consistency, yes. Traditions, rituals, of course. But I think understanding that they can be contextualized too just broadens our world.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. For so many, I think so many people are like, well, when I have a kid, it's going to change everything. And it's not easy. Like, it is, I'm not going to lie. It was the answer to what was the hardest thing you ever did.
For sure. Me too.
And yet I'm so glad that I really worked to have both, that I
Yeah.
give up. There was a moment early when I had like a little one who wasn't sleeping, that I thought, oh, is this the end of my career? Like, am I going to do something else?
Interesting.
But I had gotten the Dramatist Guild Fellowship. And it kind of forced me to have a deadline
Mm.
with the real, I was showing my songs to Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty
Mm.
once a month. And so I couldn't phone it in.
Nope.
And it forced me to follow Marcia Norman's advice and get, at the time, like, I think I had a babysitter 12 hours. Like she'd come for 3-hour chunks, like during the afternoon while
Mm,
for the afternoon nap or whatever.
yeah.
In those 3 hours, I did more work in those 3 hours than I would in a week when my
Yeah.
school was totally open and I could be like, well, first I have to sharpen my pencils. Oh, these pencils aren't right. They don't smell right. I need to get good smelling pencils.
I love that. Yeah. No, for sure. That's brilliant. So, what gifts do you think came out of that hardest thing? Aside from the fact that here you are and you've got great kids and all that, but for you, what gifts and learning?
Well, I mean, one gift that we have talked about in the press is that we would, when we had to leave, I would make up these little lullabies for them
Mm,
so that and I was like, you'll sing this with Aunt Kate every night, but it's a song so you know that we are with you. And then that lullaby and that idea turned into a plot point for Coco
oh,
and
nice.
song Remember Me. Um, and so like the gifts of everything that we do resonates with what we're making at the time. I just
Yes.
I can't keep them separate. They just are in dialogue with what we're doing. So, those years of Elsa's anxiety, Elsa's feeling like it was just only up to her,
Mm,
and that kind of anxiety, I could really tap into that idea, because I was dealing with it of like, oh, I'm in California right now and the baby has croup. Um, and I've got to find the pediatrician, figure out how the dexamethasone is going to get delivered to her, make it to this, party with the studio execs.
yeah.
Um, like I definitely understood
Yep.
the feeling of like playing lots of parts and feeling like it was all on my shoulders.
Yeah, no, totally. And just earlier when you were talking about how things just kind of the word that came to my mind was synthesis.
Hmm.
That's so beautiful when you allowed, like when you described, the lullaby,
Mhm.
using this beautiful thing that came out of you and giving it to your child as something to say, I'm with you. This came from me. Just like they came out of you. Like the music came out of you too. And I think that's so spectacularly beautiful and poignant.
Thank you.
And then I just got the feeling of synthesis, right? That's all part of we're not just on the wave, right? That we're all in the water together. We are all the water.
Absolutely. I do
Beautiful.
think that when I talk about my work, it it's just amazing. And maybe it's circling right back to the very beginning, that word that we can't remember, which is that whatever it is that we're focusing on tends to show up.
Yeah.
So often the issues that we're grappling with are the issues that I'm grappling with in my work,
Yep.
and that they're in dialogue with each other.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, totally. And we teach what we most need to learn. So
Yeah.
it's really a great thing to, like, if you hear yourself either telling someone, like you're thinking, yeah, and the universe
Right.
provides.
We write that song we most need to hear.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
true in my life.
Yeah. Interesting, right?
Mhm.
So that was the most difficult. What was the easiest decision you ever made?
Oh gosh, this one was harder. And every time I listened to you ask this to somebody else, I was like, okay, what's my answer going to be? Solved it. I since I've already talked so much about my children, I mean, one.
Wait. So just let's do this in real time.
Mhm.
There's no right or wrong,
Right.
and you can always change.
Yeah.
So bring yourself to this moment
Right.
and tap into what comes up right now, not what you thought you might say before, or don't
Yeah.
analyze.
The easiest thing I ever did was become a songwriter.
Mm.
Was flip into this is a hard one to answer because it was an emotional, it wasn't owning that I was a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was easy when it finally felt like, oh, of course. Um, and it had been years of struggle before that.
Mm.
Um, so it was hard and it was easy. Like when the first time I wrote my first song for the BMI workshop, um, and it went well and it connected, that was the easy moment where I was like, bye bye acting. I'm a writer. But that had taken years of exploring to get.
Mm.
So I'm answering with a paradox.
No, I love paradoxes. So that's great. It's interesting though that you said that it again, it was sort of a binary thing that you said, bye bye acting. This is what I am. That's interesting because in my head, I was going, yes, and
Hmm.
I am also this.
Yes, I had, eh, and that is something that I'm probably going to. I've always joked that once the kids are passed, and if we're lucky enough to, have enough money, one of these days I want to just play Aunt Eller at like an encores or something. Like one of these days, I want to get back onto the stage. I love performing.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I I love it, but at the time, um, I had been a like a regional actress. The other standard joke is if there was a nun to be played in New Hampshire, I played it. I just spent years playing nuns in New Hampshire. It was the nonsense boom, and then there was a couple of dabbles with Maria Von Trapp. But the that involved like going away and BMI. I got this opportunity to learn how to be a songwriter through the BMI workshop, and that meant like, okay, you're committing. You have to be there every Monday. You weren't allowed to miss more than 3 classes or you got kicked out. So it
Mm-hmm.
was a commitment. And I wrote my first song and I had missed like 2 classes because I had been doing a show in New Hampshire, a review in New Hampshire. Um, and that was really fun. But there was this moment where I was like, okay, no more auditioning, no more like I'm doing this.
Mm.
And that was the easy choice.
Cool.
Um, but like I said, I had spent a very long journey um, denying that I was a writer or
Mm.
director um, from from the time that I stopped directing in my backyard.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because it was the 80s, and we didn't see women songwriters. We didn't see women
Mm.
directors. Every cast album had a bunch of very worried looking men gathered around a piano smoking with like alcohol, and the songwriters looked like angry smoking men. And so and I was clearly a girl who loved theater from a very,
Oh my
very young
God.
age. Yeah, I think that the formula was for a girl who loved theater of like, oh, you want to be an actress.
And you could
And I
sing
very
too, right? So it's like, oh, got to go sing and be an actress. Yeah. Just
um,
talk about, you said you like patterns, and pattern recognition is a huge part of what I do in my work. And I can see a tremendous pattern going on here with, with the, step up. Here are the parameters. And you do step up and you like the parameters because they help you do it the way it's supposed to do. Because, right. And it's, and then there's when two things, the paradoxes come up. When two things are
mhm.
going on, that's where the work and the growth has come, right? Where you start to recognize that oh no, I can be a mother and I can be an Oscar winning, so like these are all part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is the how. I mean, how is the thing, right? I mean, we all talk about our why. Our why is very, very important, obviously. But when we're really living in our why and in our values and living intentionally, that's not meant to keep us in with parameters, but rather to keep us open, right? So that we can figure out how. And that's where that's the Venn diagram of like, you know, so you're not living woo woo on a mountain,
Right.
but where you can really tap into that when you want to. We always talk about like the ultimate things. Like I want to be here and I want to be intentional. Yes, yes, intentional is great. I'm not saying any of these things are bad, but almost as if it's a destination,
Mm.
right? And I feel like there's such a diversity of self, and it's about recognizing that we always have access, but sometimes it's blocked.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so we talk about getting rid of those blocks so that we can then choose where we want to show up energetically. And that's the shading that you talked about. That's the layers. That's why I pulled that out from what you said.
Mm.
She's interested in, elevating and playing in that area of different layers and exploring. It's pretty exciting. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think layers are important, especially if you did have a certain. I mean, we're not famous in any way, shape, or form, but if after a while, like you said, um, feeling frozen in a particular role
Yeah.
or a particular idea
Yep.
of yourself, even though you know you're changing a lot, um, that means that is that hard work of showing up true to yourself, but maybe not being quite as like jazz hands clowny as you have shown up before.
Unless you want to.
Yeah, right.
100%. I mean, that's me. I
I
mean,
love a jazz hands. Right.
me too, but people always want that all the time. And it's so funny because you heard my meditations.
Mm-hmm.
That's a totally different shade of me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What are you most afraid of?
What am I most afraid of? Disappointing people. I I really hate disappointing people.
Mm.
But I'm also really afraid of how that can be used to control me with if I don't put down boundaries. Um, so I try to be really good about boundaries so that I make sure people aren't expecting more than what I have the capacity to give.
What do you know will stay true about you no matter what happens?
I think my imagination. I think my storyteller mind. No, my storyteller mind, it's what has served me. And I think it's a big part of going back to the special needs brother, that very, very early on, I was given directives to put yourself in their shoes.
Mm.
And so I think that for better or for worse, I'm always going to be a nostril for like where somebody is, like just a big walking nostril, and trying to understand their story and
Yeah.
intuit their story, so I can be of help. So I it's also I have to silence that storyteller. Sometimes I also have to go like, I'm not right. That's a story. Um,
Oh yeah. How do you want to be remembered?
I think I want to be remembered as a a force for good. I want to be remembered that I made people feel seen. I want to be remembered for somebody who brought joy and wisdom to the world.
Mm. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about this already. Most people think Kristen Anderson-Lopez is, but the truth is there something else you'd want to share there?
I guess most people think Kristen Anderson is extroverted.
Mm.
The truth is, I am an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert. I don't know.
Ambivert, an ambivert.
Ambivert.
Totally. Yeah. I love that. How do you recharge?
Walking in the woods,
Mm.
baths, honestly, podcasts like yours.
Mm.
But I find the realms of spirituality outside of traditional religious structures
Mm-hmm.
very filling for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, it's higher consciousness, really, isn't it? I mean, that sounds highfalutin, but it really is about being more conscious, which simply means being more aware, right?
Absolutely.
More responsive than reactive.
Yeah. And different lenses. I mean, I think all of these things are a tool. The idea of chakras are a tool to
Yes,
tap into different energies and sources in yourself.
totally.
I love a tool to help you tap into truth beyond the like, what am I doing today? And what are we eating today?
Yeah,
And what am I wearing today? And
totally.
just to help us go a little deeper into the truth.
Totally. 10 years from now, what are we celebrating?
10 years from now, I think we're celebrating my one woman show, or my first animated movie as a director. One of those things.
I'm not laughing at you, but if we were coaching together, I'd be all over you. You hear
Wow.
well, because it's first of all, you sound like a Canadian up talking at the end, but because this is not a judgment or a criticism, it's just an observation that you're so toe dipping and it's still cold. One moment, show. Directing, I'm your magic genie here. I'm going 10 years from now. What are we celebrating? You could have said anything. I'm on top of the Himalayas and I don't know. I mean, it could be anything. Start to explore that, because just because you say it doesn't mean you have to do it.
Right.
And sometimes folks feel like if they say it, then they're committed.
That was the fear that
That's what I was hearing.
I was like, I don't have time to do that right now.
commit to the dreaming, because you can do that now. And the dreaming is where stuff percolates, and it's like having a date with your muse, right? I mean, you just play. And it doesn't mean anything. It's not result oriented. So when I ask you that kind of, you went future linear, like, I don't want to say exactly, because I don't know, maybe there's, you don't want to, like, if I do that, I can't do that. That's what I'm hearing. That's the pattern. And I think if you can come to living in the moment, to bring it to what we're doing here today,
Right.
that's where possibility lies, because you don't have to do anything that you dream about. You can just dream and explore and embody and take a trip there without, you know what I mean? And you'll have a much better idea of what that feels like.
All right. Well, 10 years from now, are celebrating my one woman show, which has turned into an HBO special and a live tour with musicians, dancers, and I'm 10 pounds thinner.
Amazing. And are we in New Zealand hanging out and drinking because that's where the show's top?
Maybe we have to be in New Zealand and taking the Lord of the Rings tour.
Hell yeah. I'm there. I'm there with you. That was great. So you probably felt that a lot further down here.
I did. It was weird. It's strange that it has to be on HBO. HBO may not exist after
You read my mind. You read my mind. That's right.
the streaming wars. Who knows?
That's right. And again, if we were continuing to work together, I keep saying why, and you'd distill it down to the feeling that you want, and then we talk about, well, where else can you find that feeling? I mean, you could totally have that, but it's not the only thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is super
I think,
cool.
I think the HBO feeling was like, oh, the one woman show went well. Well
Yeah,
enough
exactly.
to a
Well,
TV special.
it went well. Come on, you killed it. Well, and and that's important to you probably because dot dot dot, right? Because you tell me why would that be important that it does well?
Um, because nothing is sadder than a one woman show that doesn't go well.
Oh, that's not true. There's so much sadder. You're so funny. There's a limiting belief right there.
I also want to point out that my one woman show involves dancers and musicians, so I guess it's not a one woman show. Um,
So you could blame it on them.
yeah, they screwed with fucking actors.
Oh my God. Okay, we're going to do the rapid fire. Are you ready?
Sure, yeah.
What makes you hungry?
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, anxiety.
Anxiety.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Discovered that anxiety makes me very hungry.
That's super interesting. What makes you sad?
Oh, anybody who's powerless getting picked on by a bully.
Mm.
Any bullies in the world.
Mm. What inspires you?
Great music. My husband's melodies.
What frustrates you?
Technology, apps, and passwords.
Damn passwords. You can never remember them.
Passwords. Like everything's a portal. And
Mm.
just the minute somebody says the word portal, my shoulders just go right up. Like, oh, I'm not going to do that. There's a portal.
Hey, what makes you laugh?
Oh, threes, things that come in threes, and the
Oh,
third thing is ridiculous. My older daughter's writing, she's like an amazing comedy writer.
oh.
And I don't know. There's so many things that make me laugh. My husband makes me laugh like all day long.
That's so nice. Is laughter important to you?
Oh, laughter's huge.
Yeah.
Laughter is sexy too. Like laughter is when somebody can make me laugh. I instantly like have great admiration for them.
Mm. What makes you angry?
What makes me angry is ignorance,
Mm.
ignorance, tribalism, and authoritarian personality disorder.
Mm. Finally, what makes you grateful?
Oh, lately the sunsets, like I'm getting more and more obsessed with sunsets, being near water, hearing the wind, like nature, being out in
Mm.
nature, really excites an Anne of Green Gables level of poetry and
Yeah,
attitude.
love
Uh,
that.
I like to live in that space.
That's beautiful. What are the top 3 things that have happened so far today?
Well, my husband made me an egg as he does many breakfasts. Like one of his acts of service and love to me is like he's Mr. Breakfast and he makes me delicious coffee. And I
Nice.
love that because I'm not a great morning person. It takes me a minute to rev up. I walked by the water in Dumbo today.
Nice. Oh, beautiful.
Um, and then I saw coming up on the elevator, I saw the man with the Let It Grow t-shirt. And perhaps because I am obsessed egotist, I was like, I wonder if that has to do with my song.
That's so funny. And what's something that you're looking forward to today, and then something you're looking forward to in the future?
Well, tonight we're going to go see John Proctor as the villain. And I hear Sadie Sink is amazing in it. And so I'm excited to go see that. And then in the future, I'm really looking forward to the summer. I'm really looking forward to being, we have a place in the woods in Connecticut. I'm really excited
Nice.
to be there for a longer period of time.
I don't want to let you go, but I'm not even going to say the S word.
This has been
I'm
really
going to let you go.
okay.
Kristen, it's been such a pleasure. I can't thank you enough.
Oh, thank you. This is really, really fun.
Truly. I've been speaking today to Kristen Anderson-Lopez. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Lisa Hopkins. Stay safe and healthy, everyone, and remember to live in the moment. In music, stop time is that beautiful moment where the band is suspended in rhythmic unison, supporting the soloist to express their individuality. In the moment, I encourage you to take that time and create your own rhythm. Until next time, I'm Lisa Hopkins. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to dive deeper into cultivating a life of creative possibilities with my new book, The Places Where There Are Spaces. It's filled with personal stories and insights to help you embrace living in the moment. You can grab your copy by following the link in the show notes or wherever books are sold. Let's keep the conversation going and growing.